Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. Our program is about health and about nutrition. And each week at this time, we're here to share information on how to improve the quality of your life. There are a lot of ways that we know to do that. We can improve our diet, exercise, understand the quality of our environment and how we can clean it up, both our home, office, workplace, and also what special nutrients might enhance our overall well-being and functioning. But what if I said that there was a form of medical alchemy? Is it possible? Well, throughout the centuries, people have been trying to turn lead into gold. We have a guest who claims that he can do that in his own special way. His name is Dr. Robert Fox. Dr. Fox is one of a growing number of researchers who are studying what is known as magnetic healing. Now, Dr. Fox is going to tell you the story and the background on this, but keep in mind this is not something that is just the wild imagination of one Dallas researcher. There are over 100 physicians currently in the United States who are using this form of therapy to help both animals and humans. What we like to do on this program is bring you information and services and ideas years before the general media even becomes aware they exist. And that way, if they prove to be legitimate and if they can sustain a efficacy and safety, that means that you can benefit from them now. If you have herpes, AIDS, if you have Epstein-Barr virus, mononucleosis, if you have infectious hepatitis A, B, or C, if you have many of the conditions like cancer and arthritis that have condemned millions to death or suffering, pay careful attention. This information could improve the quality of your life. Welcome to our program, Robert.
Thank you.
First, so that we can separate the almost mystical reputation that magnetic healing is developing and keep it out of the so-called New Age circuit of having the sole and exclusive domain for this, and put it where it should be in mainstream research and medicine. Tell us what it is and what it legitimately will do and what it won't do.
Well, pulsed electromagnetics will improve the circulation and increase the oxygen. This has been verified by a number of studies, and in particular a study at University of Saarbrücken in West Germany. And they found that the increase in oxygen at the cellular level is in the increase in oxygen is in the order of 200%, which is a pretty substantial increase. And over Western Europe, people would get together on bus tours. This goes back some 15, 20 years. People would get together on bus tours and get on over to Romania, where originally they had pulsed electromagnetic equipment. And there they would get relief from their chronic degenerative conditions that were considered hopeless. And then a West German company picked up on the idea, and they started manufacturing and marketing the equipment worldwide. I first saw it in 1982, and as soon as I experienced it, I said, wow, this is it, because it had a significant, I could feel a significant change in my own body.
In what way?
Well, as a child, I'd been hit by a car when I was riding a bicycle, and I had initially some pain in my neck, which after a short period of time went away, and then years later came back with a vengeance. And the result was that I went to chiropractors from coast to coast, and after years of going to chiropractors, my experience with the electromagnetic was that it gave prompt relief from the pain, and even more than that, with a series of treatments, I ended up in a well condition that I just no longer needed any further treatment.
All right, Robert, there was some background on magnetic healing with the horse out of the Black Stallion movie. Would you give us background on that?
Sure. In the movie The Black Stallion, they make it out like one horse. In actual fact, it's three. It's like actor, stuntman, and stand-in. There were, the three horses were Cassoulet, Diamond Knight, I forget the name of the third one, in any event, Diamond Knight jumped up for a stunt. When the horse came down, it was like a rifle shot as the upper leg shattered, breaking in 18 places into the shoulder, some 18 places. And then, such a valuable horse, they wanted to do anything possible for him, and you know what's normally done with horses that break their legs. Well, in this case, they checked with 3 universities. 3 universities, when they looked at the x-rays, of course, looked like a jigsaw puzzle. And 3 universities said the horse would never, never walk again. The only thing to be done was a lethal injection. And so the horse was signed over to a veterinarian for the veterinarian to terminate the horse and put him out of his misery. And as it happened, I'd met with this veterinarian shortly before the case came up, and he decided on his own to attempt the impossible. He stayed up all night with a custom machine shop, custom making what's called a Kirschner device. It's a steel frame on the outside with pins going through the bone, so to hold the bone all together in this disastrous situation. So what happened is he told me that anytime they put a pin through the bone dies around the pin, and the problem is called pressure necrosis. And with as many pins as he had to use, the whole bone would be dead. It would still be a hopeless case and a terminal situation, except for one thing. By using pulsed electromagnetics, he was able to, number one, flat eliminate the pressure necrosis problem, was able to alleviate the pain so the horse was able to withstand the treatment, and number 3, accelerated the healing. The horse is alive and well, running and jumping.
All right, give us background on exactly how this works. What are we talking about?
Well, there's a number of theories, and I wouldn't say that any one of them has a monopoly on what really is happening. It's there are a number of theories. The one that I believe really works is that it works with the circulation and the lymphatic system. And in any case, when you have a disease or injury, you end up with a situation that's called trapped plasma proteins. In the blood, there are plasma proteins. They're the albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. What they do in the blood is they keep the water content of blood high at 91%. So blood in the body is always the perfect viscosity. We know that blood has to come out from the capillaries to bring oxygen and nutrients to the healthy cells. Any plasma proteins that get left behind in the spaces between the cells, and by the way, the spaces between the cells are generally quite tight. Any plasma proteins that get left behind in those spaces are normally taken away in the lymphatic system and recirculated back into the bloodstream at the point of the thoracic duct in the center of the chest. Any time when there's disease or injury, plasma proteins are literally trapped in the spaces between the cells. Plasma proteins don't know where they are, so they continue to do the same thing they've always done. They attract fluid. If we're dealing with an ankle sprain, the fluid buildup will be immediately apparent in terms of swelling. But it could be an internal organ, and there it would just cause cellular dysfunction. And could be in the brain, could be a stroke, and what it will result in is fluid buildup in the spaces between the cells. That starts to cut the cells off from oxygen and creates a complete disruption of all cellular function.
Explain that now in lay language. What does that mean to the average person?
Well, if you have a way to remove trapped plasma proteins, then the cells can be restored to their original tight structure, and the pain will disappear and cellular function will be restored. Pain comes as a direct result of a shortage of oxygen in the area, and when there's a buildup of plasma proteins, it's a complete and total disaster for the cells. The circulation, the normal circulation in the spaces between the cells is not just a matter of how much blood the heart pumps. The heart pumps plenty of blood, but in addition to that, blood diffuses rapidly in and out of the capillaries, and the result is a circulation between the cells in the order of 60 gallons a minute, which is an incredible amount of circulation. If we're dealing with an analogy like a freeway, you know what it's like on the freeway. If everyone is doing 70 miles an hour, traffic could be bumper to bumper, and you will have an incredible amount of traffic going, provided everyone is doing 70 miles an hour. And what happens when there's a few wrecks on the freeway? Everything jams up, and it's like a parking lot real quick. And that's what happens when plasma proteins get trapped in the spaces between the cells. Furthermore, when they get trapped in the spaces between the cells, if they stay like that for very long, they tend to clump together. When they clump together, they form clusters and clumps that are too large for the lymphatic system to ever remove. And when that happens, that is sort of the shift between an acute situation into a chronic situation, where someone has arthritis, they have clustered plasma proteins in their joints and so on, resulting in literally their joints will literally freeze up because of plasma proteins trapped in the spaces before they freeze up due to calcium buildup.
I was speaking with a Dr. Cathcart, who's an expert on viruses. He's treated about 15,000 people using vitamin C, intravenous vitamin C. He's had remarkable results. He said that he was using some magnets and had some very good results, but they were still tentative. So he led me to a doctor out in the West who's using them and who's claiming tremendous results with all types of conditions. This is a Dr. William Philpott. Now, Philpott is using single magnets, a regular magnet on different parts of the body, primarily north polarized. Explain what that is doing, and then explain what it is that you're researching, which is not a fixed magnet that goes on the body, but rather a electrically controlled pulsation.
Well, the permanent magnets work, and there's been much research on this and tremendous results. What I'm dealing with is a sophisticated piece of equipment that provides a pulsed electromagnetic field. This is an on-off type situation. As it happens, the whole planet, the Earth, has a pulsed electromagnetic field. The Earth's electromagnetic field is pulsed, it varies slightly, it's pulsed between 8 and 10 pulses per second. And some different effects happen when you use pulsations that are slightly below the Earth's pulsation or slightly above the Earth's pulsation. And below the Earth's pulsation, you have a North Pole type effect. The increase in oxygen, again, is in the order of 200%. Pathogenic material, germs of bacteria, viruses, yeast, parasites, all of these things seem to feed on dead and dying tissue. And the way people set a banquet table of dead and dying tissue inside their bodies is with a low oxygen condition. A low oxygen condition is a complete disaster for the cells. And when they have a low oxygen condition, they're wide open for viral infections, bacterial infections, fungus, yeast, the whole works.
That still doesn't tell me what this fixed magnet does. Let's start with that. Someone goes out and buys themselves a magnet, all right? What happens when that magnet goes on a part of their body?
Well, Dr. Philpott has been working with the fixed magnets. I've been working with the pulsed magnets.
All right. Could you explain, though, the fixed magnet concept?
Well, the North Pole magnetic energy tends to, it's a negative energy that tends to create a compression or a contraction, and there will be benefits in that. The analogy with the pulse magnetics is when say for instance a sports player gets injured on the field and he has a sprained ankle, immediately there starts to be swelling, and the physical therapist on the sidelines will want to pack the injured area in ice. Ice or any kind of cold creates a contraction, and there's an important therapeutic benefit to be realized there in relation to removal of trapped plasma proteins.
But you're still not answering the question. You're dealing in a very esoteric area for most people. They're not going to understand you if you don't make it crystal clear. You have a magnet, all right? You have a magnet that you put on a person's body, okay? I'm going to ask our, I'm going to ask our, one of our floor managers here to hand me a magnet. Now, I'm going to show the audience what this magnet is. Jody Blanchard, hand me the magnet, please. And this magnet, thank you. This magnet has coils in it. What's in here?
Windings of copper wire.
Copper wires in here.
Yes.
This is a conductor?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say I sprain my arm, all right? I put this on my arm like this.
Right.
Okay? Then I have your computer that you're researching, and I turn on that computer. What exactly is happening? What's it going to do for my sprained arm?
First off, the setting that you would use is a low frequency setting which will contract the capillaries. It's like closing the on-ramps to the freeway until the wrecks can be cleared. If you can clear the wrecks out of the way, then circulation can be restored to its normal healthy flow of 60 gallons a minute. When that happens, again, you will be healthy.
So there's a pulsation going in there, right?
Correct.
So you set the pulsation at what?
Well, the most powerful setting that I've found is a frequency of 2. 2 pulses per second produces a very powerful contraction and a very powerful removal of trapped plasma proteins.
So you set a pulse at 2, so every 2 seconds it's doing this.
Every second, 2 pulses.
Every second, 2 pulses, and then it's a frequency. What's the frequency?
The frequency is 2.
Oh, what is the 50 that you use?
That is the intensity, the magnetic intensity.
So that's
the strength of the pulse.
All right, so it could be a very strong pulse or very weak pulse, as well as a very fast pulse or a very slow pulse.
Correct.
So let's say for a sprain, you would use a very fast pulse at a...
No, a slow pulse.
2 per second?
2 per second.
Oh,
relatively speaking, that's a slow pulse.
That's a slow pulse, right? So you want a slow pulse. So what's happening is your arm is getting pulsated with a certain frequency and a certain intensity of a electrical magnetic force field.
Correct.
All right? That is in turn stimulating your cells to contract, to relax, to change the polarity of the cell. What exactly is it doing?
Well, that low frequency of 2 contracts the capillaries. When you contract the capillaries, it's like closing the on-ramps to the freeway being the spaces between the cells. And if they're clogged with trapped plasma proteins, which they will be in the case of a physical injury involving swelling, if you can contract the capillaries, which is what ice does, and when a physical therapist uses ice, that's the effect he's accomplishing, contracting the capillaries. We all know that if you stick your hand in a bucket of ice water, pull it out in a few minutes, it'll be almost white. And that's the effect. Cold contracts the capillaries. The important therapeutic benefit to that is that that effect of contracting the capillaries means it's like closing the on-ramps to the freeway, which is the spaces between the cells, and it allows the lymphatic system to catch up with the removal of trapped plasma proteins. The trapped plasma proteins are in fact what is holding the swelling in place. So in the case of physical injuries like this, the kind of things we've seen is a literal removal of the swelling, sometimes right before your very eyes in a 30-minute treatment.
Now, I'm a long-distance runner. I'm a nationally ranked master athlete, TAC and MAC, Metropolitan Athletic Congress and the Athletic Congress. I compete about 50 times a year in marathons. I just won the Los Angeles Marathon in my overall in race walking, and I also do running. I've been using an experimental model to see how quick my recovery is. Normally it would take about 10 days minimum before I could race again. I've been able to do a race every single week, including a marathon, next week a half marathon, and have very fast recovery. Myself and some other athletes are seeing whether or not this has an impact. It's still too early to determine that. We're still in the process. But what would happen if we put it on the wrong frequency? What would happen if you put it instead of 2 at 50? Would you reverse that process?
If you use the wrong frequency, in particular a higher frequency, you may expand the capillaries and you may actually get more trapped plasma proteins. Now,
when would you want to do that?
Well, recovery from an injury, for instance a fracture, recovery from a fracture is a process from A to Z. And initially there's swelling and pain. Initially you would use a low frequency which draws out the swelling and reduces the pain. Once the swelling is gone, then you can start moving up the frequency scale into the stimulation area and increase circulation and rehabilitation. At the upper end of the frequency scale, what seems to happen is it almost literally welds the bones back together.
Would you want a higher frequency if you suffered from multiple sclerosis?
In the case of most chronic degenerative conditions, initially you would use a low frequency to remove the trapped plasma proteins. They are present in all of these situations.
Does it remove
first.
any body toxicity?
Seems to have a major detoxifying effect. And
so this could be theoretically used to help people who are withdrawing from drugs, crack, cocaine, heroin. Would it help a person with caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco addictions?
The people who have used these things, if someone has been taking drugs, LSD or such, or cocaine or whatever, and they may not have been taking them for, say, the last 5 years, and they start to use the pulsed electromagnetic, sometimes the detoxifying effect is so powerful that they literally have drug flashbacks.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are you going, in your next life, are you going to be a politician? Are you going to ever be capable of just answering a direct question? Now we're going to get one out of you before this program's over, I'm sure.
Okay.
If a person has cancer, have you seen results helping people with cancer?
Well, yes.
Gee whiz. Lo and behold, yes. To what degree, to what extent, and under what conditions?
I have known for years that the pulsed electromagnetic, with its increase in oxygen, would be beneficial in cancer situations. Cancer is just an oxygenation problem at the cellular level, and it wasn't until recently that anyone came by to say that they were terminal and needed some serious help. A lady came by, she had terminal breast cancer, and through an association she was aware that pulsed magnetics would help her, and through a mutual friend was aware that I had pulsed electromagnetic equipment. So she used it, and her terminal case of cancer disappeared, and today she's vibrantly healthy. And she has told a few other people. A friend of hers with uterine cancer knocked that out, another one with throat cancer knocked that out, another one with breast cancer knocked that out.
Have you approached the National Cancer Institute or any of the major cancer centers down in Texas where you're from? It's the MD Anderson or Baylor College of Medicine to share this information?
No, I haven't.
Why?
Well, it seems that the politics of cancer are such that there doesn't seem to be a great deal of interest in the things that actually work. In California, it is literally a felony to treat cancer with anything outside of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. The things that the establishment has already acknowledged don't work.
What kind of doctors are using it? How many, to your knowledge, are using it?
Very few. And, well, I mean, very few relatively. I mean, there's so many doctors, and they seem to be totally involved with drugs. And if this thing is not a drug and not a surgery, then how can it possibly be any good? It seems to be the attitude.
We have a lot of scientists, public health educators, physicians who watch this program. If they would like the proof to substantiate the claims that you have made, will you be able to provide them with that proof?
Yes.
Okay. You have everything documented.
Well, I haven't gone to a lot of trouble in terms of documenting these cases, but they could speak to the people themselves.
Do you have a list of physicians who are using this type of apparatus for them to see what kind of results they have achieved?
Some, yes.
All right. Are you aware of any major research institutions in this country or others that are using this in an experimental model?
Loma Linda University was using it.
Are they still using it?
I'm not certain at this point in time.
What kind of results did they get?
Well, very good results.
All right. In what way?
They were studying blood flow, and of course there's a substantial increase in circulation. They also studied diabetic neuropathy, acute sports injuries, osteoarthritis.
So a person who has poor circulatory conditions, intermittent claudication, diabetes, poor circulation to the extremities, people with, let's say, stroke would have a benefit from this.
Absolutely.
But used improperly, from what you're telling me, it could actually worsen a condition or hurt a person.
Yes, and it will show up very quickly.
All right. We're out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A provocative idea. It's now time to do clinical trials and serious research to see if this couldn't help people right now.